Britain is increasingly divided from recent anti-immigration riots in Belfast. The rise of Restore Britain. More people are turning to the political fringes. Nicola Wilding has been making documentaries to tell other people's stories for the last 25 years. Now, in her memoir, Those Wild English, she is turning the lens inward to tell her family's story and ask how a fracturing Britain led her mother, a lifelong caregiver from a working-class Cumbrian farming family, to unexpectedly join a far-right splinter group at the age of 60. Nicola, welcome to Times Radio.
Thank you, Hugo. Thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for being with us. Look, the personal story in your book has national implications. It shows that some of the people who go on far-right marches or support Tommy Robinson are quote-unquote normal. Why did you want to tell this story?
I wanted to understand my mum, really. It was it started off a very personal journey. So back in 2013, Mum went on her first EDL march and she took herself over London Bridge chanting, "I'm England till I die." And at the same time, my brother was sent to prison for armed robbery. And so I just really wanted to get a sense of how we got here as a family. And I was a TV producer. I think I was making a documentary about people that had met the Queen at the time. So I really wanted to sort of understand where this sort of flashpoint came from. And so I wrote These Wild English, which is, as you say, a memoir. It follows 3 generations of my family, rural working class. And it's a sort of a book about love and pride and protest and that really messy human need to belong.
Tell us about your mother's sort of life story then, because she had a difficult upbringing, even if it wasn't perhaps that remarkable for the time and place that she was growing up in. But tell us about her life.
And so she was brought up on a farm. She was one of 8, and her father, my grandfather, was a labourer, so they didn't have a huge amount of money, and my grandmother struggled on the farm, so she would often run away and leave Mum and Grandad to sort of hold the fort, if you like. And she ended up sort of having me quite young at 18. And there was a few turbulent marriages, not a lot of money in the 70s. And then I think from the 80s onwards, Mum, she married a soldier, and so that she had a very transient life after that. So she moved around the country. She was in Cyprus and in Northern Ireland, and I think that's probably when I get a sense that her sort of political sort of leanings started to emerge. She was very almost happy-go-lucky before them.
And look, when she, why was the murder of Lee Rigby in 2013 by Islamist terrorists like such a moment of change for her? Was it like the culmination of stuff that had been growing in her beforehand, or did it absolutely change her view?
It must have, it's a really interesting question. It must have been percolating in there. Certainly when she sort of married a soldier in the army and she became part of that military life, I think she certainly got a sense of sort of what it means to sort of, serve for the state. I think she saw a lot of things in Northern Ireland because she ran the pub there in one of the barracks, and I think she saw a lot of things there, made her start to think about her position in the world, her identity as somebody who was working class but also British, and a sense that you could be disliked for being British. And I think when she saw what happened to Lee Rigby, when she was in Northern Ireland, she had a sort of encounter outside the barrack gates, an unpleasant encounter, and I think that sort of struck home with her that, a soldier could be murdered in Britain. He could be hated in Britain and murdered, and that really struck a chord, and it was outside his barracks. And I think that was sort of the flashpoint, really, that pulled all of these feelings together, if you like.
And when her views began to harden and appeared to change, what did that feel like for you? Were you alarmed by it? Were you amused by it? Did you talk to her about it?
I was bemused. Mum was quite feisty. She was quite strong-willed. I didn't want to challenge her too much at first because I was trying to work out what was going on. I thought a lot of that might be something to do with my brother being in prison and, those emotions leaking out in strange ways. So I didn't want to push her too much. But as the sort of Facebook posts sort of increased, I started to ask questions about whether she thought some of these posts might be racist. And she would answer, well, no, because, for example, Islam isn't a race. So I challenged, but gently. As I say, I was a little bit shocked, bemused and perplexed.
Yeah, I mean, and how you mentioned Facebook there, how important was social media to her changing views, in both in what she was posting and what she was reading?
I think it was really important to her. I think that's where she found this sort of online community, and a sense of, I'm going to say grievance, which I suppose when you're with like-minded people who feel that sense of grievance, it's going to sort of snowball, isn't it? And she found a community in there.
Did you ever
really missing for her?
Did you ever feel she had a point? Perhaps not in everything she was saying, but in some of the things she was saying.
Oh, it's a tricky one. Gosh, I can't condone anything that Mum did. I can understand where those emotions and sentiment might arise. If you're feeling sort of powerless, and if you feel that your voice isn't heard, then I think, if there's limited outlets for that. So I have a certain amount of sympathy, but I certainly don't condone her sort of marching on the streets.
Would you have described what happened to her as being radicalised in the traditional sense?
Possibly, yes. Yes, I think she probably was radicalised as much as a 60-year-old mum of four who'd spent 40 years as a carer can be. She certainly felt that the country that she loved was in danger. I think there was a fear that, and she said, ultimately that she felt that one day the white working classes would become a minority, and that really worried her. And I think she had concerns about immigration too.
And when you were with her, how did you navigate this? Was it something that sort of lurked in the background? If you didn't want to confront her, did you just sort of ignore it? Did she say things and you'd sort of quietly roll your eyes and move on? What was the approach?
It was, I tried to be as sensitive as possible. Sometimes it got a little bit fraught. I think the times when she posted the defund the BBC Facebook post, there was like, hang on, Mum, do you want me out of a job? So it was, I didn't want to alienate her. She was my mum. And I didn't particularly think she was far right. In fact, I remember one conversation we had, and I said, are you far right, Mum? And she said, well, I am if you think I am.
Yeah.
So I think she felt almost pushed into that identity, if that makes any sense.
I mean, I understand your mother is no longer with us. Would you have written this book while she was?
Yes, I was writing it whilst she was with us, and Mum was very excited by the book. And Mum was a very clear-eyed person. She had a lot of integrity and a lot of honesty about her. And she was very happy for me to include everything in. And we had long discussions about her marches and her beliefs. And she didn't want to hold back.
Did she think that the more you looked into it, the more you would come to see things her way?
Possibly. Yes.
Yeah, sure. Look, the government is banning social media for young teenagers, but many people are going to relate to finding a sort of rabbit hole of anger online. Do you think that social media should have been, I don't know by whom, whether by the companies or by the government, but in some way controlled, so that your mother couldn't sort of fall down this hole, even if you don't quite see it as falling down a hole?
Possibly, but I don't even know whether we have to think even further upstream and think, well, how did she get to that point that she had to seek that out? Why is that the only avenue? Why does she feel so unconnected to a national story, that she feels so threatened that she has to go out on the streets or find the company of these people? I think there's a sort of bigger question there that isn't just about shutting down social media.
Well, you mentioned in the book that working in media and documentaries, you'd noticed the label of white working class emerge. Where do you think that idea came from? What does it mean? What did it mean for people that became an identity that had to be defended?
I think it's probably in the last 20 years where this label has started to be used, and it's probably a natural outcome of our move away from a sense of the working classes as a sort of homogenous identity. It's a much more diverse, multicultural society now. And I think with those different identities, it feels inevitable within the tension of the wants and needs of those groups that the notion of a white working class will emerge. And it was never really one given in generosity either. That was my feeling and understanding.
Explain what you mean by that.
It was a label that was often, I felt, used pejoratively when the working class became a problem.
Sure.
I think there was I'm not an expert on this, but I think there was certainly, we struggle to know how to talk about the working classes now, I feel. And certainly when I was looking into this in my book, I think around about 2000, I think it was quite a key moment in our country politically and for society, because that's when we became majority middle class as a country. So that sort of political power of the working classes, I think, has waned since then.
That's really, really interesting. Look, I mean, looking back, how do you remember your mother's politics now? Do you think they were an entirely reasonable response to the circumstances she was in, or do you think that something went wrong fundamentally?
Gosh, I didn't think they were reasonable. I felt sympathy and curiosity to find out why it was such a reaction. Yeah. No, and I really felt that she had no choice. And it came from a good place. I think she really felt that she wanted to protect.
Understand, Nicola. I'm afraid we've got to leave it there. Look, these Wild English by Nicola Wilding is available at the Times Bookshop now with a special discount for Times Plus members. Thank you, Nicola Wilding, very much indeed.